Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players who will win you your fantasy league in 2024. I want you guys to bring home the hardware. Bring home your fantasy football belt. Maybe you won it last year. You're going to get that second belt Conor McGregor style. So we are going to go ahead and talk about 5 players in today's video in depth who I believe will help you win your fantasy league in 2024. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into 5 players who will win you your fantasy league in 2024 fantasy football. We begin with the first player who will win you your fantasy league in 2024, and that is Cooper Kupp, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams, current underdog fantasy ADP, wide receiver 23 at pick 31.1. Now, prior to last season beginning, Cooper Kupp suffered an injury that, in my opinion, is the kiss of death for skill position players. Now, he wasn't out for the season. He played in 12 games, so he didn't tear his MCL. He didn't break his leg and turn it into a right angle like Nick Chubb. That was, in my opinion, one of the most gruesome injuries I have ever seen, right? That didn't happen to Cooper Kupp. It doesn't sound bad, right? It's just a hamstring strain. It's just a little hammy. Well, something I have known from playing fantasy football since I was 8 years old, I am now 25 years old, is that the hamstring injury will catch up to you, right? You kind of read into it, and there's people that underplay it. Oh, it's not that bad. Sean McVay got, it'll be fine. And then you watch the games, you're like, okay, Cooper Kupp is clearly still suffering from this lingering injury. Now, you can still play through the injury, which he did. He only missed the first 4 games of the season, but you could tell at points it was impacting him. But you could also tell that the Cooper Kupp, the guy that prior to this injury that everyone was giving the gawk 9,000 special, fondling the balls off, talking about how this guy was a locked and loaded top 3 receiver in fantasy football just prior to the injury, right? That guy was still in there. Wide receiver 24 in PPR points per game, wide receiver 40 on the season in PPR. 12 games played. Like I said, he missed the 4 first games with a hamstring strain. 95 targets, 7.9 per game, 59 receptions, 4.9 per game, 737 receiving yards, 61.4 per game, and 5 total touchdowns. Despite suffering the injury entering into the season, he still ranked 22nd in fantasy points per route, 19th in route win rate, 21st in target separation, and 13th in true catch rate. Now, by the time you guys were drafting in late August, if you wait till late August or early September, Cooper Kupp started to fall down draft boards. His stock was fucking plummeting, right? His stock was going down the drain because people started to panic. Now, not everyone panicked, but a lot of people panicked, right? And Cooper Kupp had just a decent season. But again, you want to keep in mind that he entered into the season hurt. Now, I am someone that loves Puka Nacua this season. I have been talking Puka Nacua up all offseason long. I wasn't the biggest Puka Nacua stan on earth last season. I did kind of catch on towards the end of the offseason, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was really hyping him up like I was for Nico Collins or Devin A-Chain last season. I simply wasn't. But I liked Puka Nacua a small amount. I talked about him a little bit. Cooper Kupp last season was impacted by this injury. He is now 1 full year removed from it, and we've heard Cooper Kupp talk, and he says that he feels 100% healthy. And we saw last season 4 games with over 100 yards out of Cooper Kupp. And I do not believe that Puka Nacua needs to disappear, right? He doesn't have to do the John Cena, you can't see me, for Cooper Kupp to succeed. I think of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua like the 1A and the 1B. Puka 1A, Cooper Kupp 1B. Now in a vacuum, I would much rather have Puka Nacua. but based upon where Cooper Kupp is getting drafted, I feel incredible about his upside. Coming off the board is the wide receiver 23. I think he's a pretty safe bet to finish inside of the top 24 with the upside of being the old Cooper Kupp that we all know and love. The Triple Crown winner, a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy football. Stafford, 1 year older. I get Cooper Kupp 1 year older, but I still expect Cooper Kupp to be heavily involved in this offense. And if he's getting 7.9, 8 targets essentially per game, you are still going to be very excited about Cooper Kupp. And if something was to happen to Puka Nacua, knock on wood, we do not root for injuries. I'm a big Puka Nacua stan this season, but Cooper Kupp could really smash and potentially finish as a top 3 wide receiver in that scenario. So I love Cooper Kupp this season. If you asked me a couple of weeks ago, I was a little bit tame on Cooper Kupp, but the more I've thought about it, the more I started to really like Cooper Kupp. At number 2, we got Dalton Kincaid of the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Underdog ADP tight end 5 at pick 52.3. So if you miss out on McBride, Kelsey, Sam Laporta, who in my opinion are the big 3 at the tight end position in fantasy football this year, you know, Mark Andrews, George Kittle have kind of fallen out of favor. But in this video, while I love Kelsey, McBride, and Sam Laporta, we're going to say motherfuck the big 3, because Dalton Kincaid, in my opinion, has the upside in him to be the tight end number 1, and you can get him off the board as the tight end number 5 in most drafts with Laporta, Kelsey, McBride, and Mark Andrews all coming off the board before him. Now, last year, Dalton Kincaid was the tight end 11 in PPR and the tight end 13 in PPR points per game in his rookie year. 16 games played with 11 starts. He had 91 targets, 5.7 per game, ranking 8th, 73 receptions, 4.6 per game, number 7, 673 receiving yards, 42.1 per game, number 10, and just 2 total touchdowns, 27th, ranking 1st in target accuracy and 8th in true catch rate. Now, Dalton Kincaid's teammate Stephon Diggs has been fucking trebuchet catapulted off of the Bills and is now on the Houston Texans. So Dalton Kincaid's target competition is Keon Coleman, who's a guy that I think has a lot of skill, the skills to pay the bills, but he is a very raw prospect. I don't necessarily know that in year number 1, Keon Coleman is going to make a huge splash like Lizzo jumping into a fucking pool, right? I don't necessarily think that is guaranteed to be the case. They have Curtis Samuel, who kind of is one of the most hot and cold player, icy hot like the Shaquille O'Neal commercials, right? He will have these games where he is dropping a bomb, 18 points, 20 points, right? This guy is like Deebo Samuel light, right? He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, and maybe he's got some Mohamed Sanu in him. I'm not too sure. Maybe he can pass that bastard too. But what I do know is that comes very far and in between. You'll see Curtis Samuel pop up like Punxsutawney Phil and have 2 good games in a row, and then he's silent like the night Santa Claus comes for 5 games, then he shows up again, right? He's very inconsistent. They also have Khalil Shakira, and they also have Chase fucking Claypool, right? So it's not the scariest wide receiver core there. I do think one of them will out-target Dalton Kincaid, but I think there is a very plausible season outcome where we get to the end of the season and Dalton Kincaid was the number 2 target on the team. I understand that my main man, Dalton Kincaid, still has Dawson Knox one time, if you're with me, on the team. But Dawson Knox is now playing second fiddle. He's still going to get touches, sure. He's going to vulture some touchdowns, but 2 touchdowns for Dalton Kincaid seems like a laughable for what happened in 2023, right? If you watched last season and I said he had 91 targets, 73 receptions, 673 receiving yards, how many touchdowns did he have? You probably would have said at least 5, right? So he's definitely, in my opinion, going to get more than 2. And if he messes around and gets 8, then he could easily be the tight end number 1. With the competition being light in Buffalo, I think the upside of Dalton Kincaid could swing him to potentially be the tight end number 1 in fantasy football. At number 3, we got Joe Mixon. Now, the second I say Joe Mixon's name, there are going to be people that click off the video. There are going to be people who get their metaphorical panties all in a bunch, right? Nick, don't you know Joe Mixon's getting a little bit old? Don't you know that Joe Mixon hasn't been as good as he was in the past? Of course I know that. I understand that Joe Mixon is the same Joe Mixon from a couple of years ago, but when you're talking about the lead running back on an offense that is going to be scoring as many points as the Houston Texans, the undisputed running back 1, Dameon Pierce is the running back 2. I was a Dameon Pierce fan last season. Dameon Pierce stinks to high heaven. I can smell Dameon Pierce's stink through the fucking television watching the games last year. Devin Singletary looked like Walter Payton out there when you compare him to Dameon Pierce. And Joe Mixon's the running back 15 off the board, pick 62.6. And again, while people love to sling the mud onto Joe Mixon, he was the running back 6 last year in PPR and a top 12 running back in PPR points per game, running back 11. And this was on a Bengals team that was up and it's down, it's left and it's right, it's in then it's out, right? This was an offense that was a roller coaster ride. They start off the season, Joe Burrow's banged up, but he's still playing, and it doesn't work. The Bengals are awful. The Bengals are getting slapped by teams that aren't even very good. And then Joe Burrow starts to get healthy, and it's like, whoa, gee willikers, the Bengals are back, baby. The Bengals, are they going to make it to the Super Bowl? Are they going to be able to defeat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? And then we get stabbed in the back with a knife by Joe Burrow getting hurt again. And then it all goes downhill from there. But through all that, Joe Mixon still ranked 5th in carries, 257 carries, 15.1 per game, 1,034 rushing yards, 60.8 per game, number 8. Sneaky good pass catcher as well, 64 targets, 3.8 per game, 13th, 52 receptions, 3.1 per game, 9th, 376 receiving yards, 22.1 per game, 12th, and 12 total touchdowns, 6th at running back. Am I going to sit here and pretend that Joe Mixon is prime Austin Eckler at catching passes? Am I going to pretend that Joe Mixon is like Christian McCaffrey, catching balls, just running guys over? Of course not. Of course I'm not going to say that. But what I'm going to say is that if he gets 55 to 65 targets, which I think is a very safe bet on this Houston Texans team, Joe Mixon feels like a locked and loaded top 12 running back in fantasy football this year that you can get as the running back 15. You start jamming the wide receiver position early. Now, I understand on Underdog, pick 62 is definitely late. I think in a redraft league, he's going to go a little bit earlier than that. But in the 4th, the 5th round, you might be able to snag Joe Mixon. Again, while the team was up and down, while the team had its downfalls last season, 6th in yards created, 10th in dominated rank, and 14th in evaded tackles. And he no longer has Chase Brown behind him. I understand that Chase Brown wasn't going out there having these huge games, but Chase Brown is a nice spark plug for the Bengals offense, right? They now have Dameon Pierce. Again, do I think Dameon Pierce would be better than last year? Yeah, but he's not very good. And again, to further submit my point, to just throw the gavel down like I'm Judge Judy to make my final remarks here, we saw Devin Singletary look like whatever running Walter Payton. Right? He looked amazing last year. And that's because the Texans offense is that good. And guess who's there now? Stephon Diggs. And while I am more of a Stephon Diggs detractor, I'd rather have Nico, Cousin, Let's Go Bowling. I'd rather have Tank Dell than him. But guess what? That is a huge help for the Texans offense. They're going to be hitting the Macarena in the end zone. I think I said that in a video for some other team the other day, right? They are going to be hitting the fucking electric slide in the end zone, right? This is a team that is going to be running up the score, and I expect Joe Mixon to Hulk smash this season in Houston. At number 4, we got Kyler Murray, quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, Underdog ADP quarterback 7 at pick 81. We have mentioned Underdog Fantasy a couple times in today's video. If you guys are new to Underdog Fantasy and would like to do some best ball drafts right now, you want to do some practice for your real redraft league, make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description. If you claim your special pick plus up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Again, promo code Notorious, clicking on the link in the video description, get you a special pick plus up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor. I will be doing underdog best ball drafts all summer long, live streamed on the channel. Once I get back from my bachelor party at the end of June, I'm going next Thursday. There'll be videos while I'm gone, I believe. Hopefully I can make those. But yeah, I will be gone. And then once I get back, we're going to be hopping on live stream. So if you want to prepare, right? You're like, Nick, I want to draft with you. Go ahead and prepare for those drafts on Underdog Fantasy. I think it is a huge help for figuring out a great strategy to dominate 50 Shades of Grey style, your fantasy football league. Make sure you guys check it out. Link in the video description. So at number 4, we got the short king, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. Again, underdog ADP quarterback 7, pick 81. I've seen a lot of times where Kyler falls past quarterback 7 and he's like the quarterback 9 or even 10 in some drafts. Now, Kyler Murray last year missed the first half of the season because he tore his ACL and his meniscus in 2022, and he came back and he looked like the old Kyler Murray. Now, maybe it did slightly impact the amount that he was running the rock game in and game out, because we've seen this time after time when a quarterback that rushes the ball a lot, tears that ACL, the meniscus, they come out and they're a little bit scared to run the ball. I didn't necessarily see that out of Kyler, but I think it could have impacted him. He had 44 carries for 244 yards and 3 touchdowns. Quick math, you turn that to 88 carries, you get about 288 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns in a 16-game sample size. Then you add another game onto that, you get some more extra yards and maybe even an extra touchdown, right, in a 17-game sample size. He was the quarterback 26, but that's because he missed all those games. Quarterback 10 in points per game. Again, while he might have looked a little bit softish early on to run the rock, a little squeamish, he still looked really good. And he was playing with wide receivers that are computer fucking generated. Like when you are 10 years into your Madden franchise mode, these are the guys that are on your team. I am talking about CFL legends, guys that even though they were the number 1 receiver on the Cardinals, you kind of didn't even want to play them because they were that bad. Like Trey McBride and James Conner were the only usable players on the Cardinals last season. Now, it's not like they drafted 3 other receivers, but they drafted Marvin Harrison, a generational prospect, I might add, at the wide receiver position. A guy that's going to get the hook, the spit swap special out of me. Pause, right? I love Marvin Harrison, and I think he adds so much to Kyler Murray's upside. You got a quarterback that can run the ball, now with a legitimate alpha wide receiver 1. Like back in the day when Kyler had DeAndre Hopkins. Now I get these other guys on the Cardinals, outside of Trey McBride, outside of James Conner, Trey Benson can catch passes, right? Outside of Maserati Marv, it's not the best, right? It's not, you're not going to be sitting here salivating thinking about fucking Michael Wilson or something like that, right? But what I'm going to tell you is that adding Marvin Harrison, having Trey McBride is great. Last year, 33.5 pass attempts per game, 22 completions, 65.7% completion percentage, 224.9 passing yards per game, just 10 passing touchdowns, 3.7% rate. Passing touchdown rate is very important to look at. I think it is a big contributor to try to figure out what's going to happen from season to season. If you are normal, and for a quarterback as good as Kyler, 3.7 is terrible. He should be closer to 5, maybe even higher than 5. So if we see that increasing, the passing touchdown should definitely go up. The interceptions, 0.62 per game, not the best, right? But not awful either, especially when he has so much rushing upside. 0.53 fantasy points per drop back, 10th at quarterback with bums. So the addition of Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to help out a ton with a quarterback that can rush the ball. And we all know that rushing quarterbacks just inherently have so much more value in fantasy football, right? If you're talking about Kyler Murray versus Patrick Mahomes in real life, you would want Patrick Mahomes every single fucking time and twice on Sunday, right? And that's not even a dig at Kyler. But in fantasy football, there is a very possible scenario where the season ends and Mahomes coming off the board as the quarterback 4, that Kyler easily passes him up because of the rushing upside. So I'm ecstatic about Kyler now with Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. I think you should be as well. Final guy to talk about, if you've enjoyed this far, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm sweating a little bit. It's hot out here on this wonderful Thursday night as I'm recording Friday morning as you are watching. Rhamondre Stevenson of the New England Deflatriots, underdog ADP, running back 21 at pick 86. And we all know Bill Belichick's been deflating his balls inside of a 24-year-old. You dog! Not Rhamondre Stevenson, you dog, Bill Belichick. Uncle Bill is getting it done. We all knew after that video came out, I don't know if it came out in the summer before last season or right at the beginning of the season, but the Ring doorbell where Uncle Bill Belichick, I hate Bill Belichick as a Dolphins fan, but this fucking had me dying when he walked out of the house just shirtless in like Nantucket or something. Just hilarious in the middle of the morning. Like he just laid some wood down and got out of there. Respect to Uncle Bill. Just signed a 4-year deal though for Rhamondre Stevenson. Uncle Bill no longer there. $36 million extension with $17 million guaranteed. I know what you're saying. Nick, we all know how contracts work in the NFL. Rhamondre Stevenson, this is basically just like a 2-year deal because they have an out, blah, 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 blah. I know. The fact that they signed him should give you more confidence than you originally had. I was already someone that was very confident in Rhamondre, but the addition of the contract made me even more confident. I think whether Jacoby Brissett or Drizzy Drake May are under center, this is going to be a team that wants to churn the ball. And Rhamondre Stevenson was a disappointment of large magnitude last season, right? I was someone that was really high, like some giraffe pussy, on Rhamondre Stevenson. I loved Rhamondre Stevenson. And he disappointed because he got hurt, and then Zeke was there, and then Zeke kind of looked solid, and Stevenson kind of just fell out of favor. But now Zeke is back in Dallas with Uncle Jerry Jones, and now Rhamondre Stevenson's backup is Antonio Gibson. Now, in prior years, I was kind of an Antonio Gibson, not a truther, but an Antonio Gibson enjoyer. I was fine drafting Antonio Gibson, but Antonio Gibson really ain't all that, right? Like, I know Rhamondre Stevenson is a solid pass-catching running back, so that might somewhat eke the knife a little bit into Rhamondre Stevenson's pass-catching value, but I don't think it will that much. 12 games played, 13 carries per game, 51.6 rushing yards per game, 619 rushing yards, 51 targets, 38 receptions, 238 receiving yards, and 4 total touchdowns, 24.2% dominator rating, 19th. I feel as though the Patriots, are they going to do a full 180? Are they going to turn from being one of the worst teams in the NFL to one of the best teams in the NFL? New head coach Rob Mayo? No. They're not going to do that. But they are not going to be as bad as they were last season. If anyone remembers a Patriots game last year, which you probably can't remember many because you didn't want to watch it, right? I am someone that has a TV for Red Zone, 4 games on the TV on the right. So I got 2 TVs, and then I have a monitor, right? So a lot of the times I am watching 5 games, so 1 game on the smaller screen, 1 game on the big TV with the Red Zone, which is all the games, and then 4 games on the other one. So I'm watching 5 games plus Red Zone. A lot of the time, it was an easy thought. We're not watching the fucking Patriots, right? Maybe I'll throw them on my phone, we'll flip to them, but they didn't really have anyone that was remotely interesting. The only time you'd see the Patriots was when the other team was laying the pipe to that ass, when they were dealing out back shots to the Patriots. Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. I have 2 thumbs, 3 thumbs down. Awful. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend Jacoby Brissett and Drake May are the saviors in their, first year for Drake May. This is like a couple of years for Jacoby Brissett, even though he hasn't been on the team recently. But you get what I meant, right? This isn't the Messiah. These guys aren't the Messiah in year number 1 for the Patriots. They're going to turn it all around. Of course not. But as long as they aren't absolutely dog shit with what I've seen out of Rhamondre Stevenson, not just last year, but in the past, with the team giving me the confidence that they brought him back, signing a 4-year deal, makes me even more confident in Rhamondre Stevenson. I think that Rhamondre Stevenson is going to bounce back. Shout out Big Sean. Last night we took an L, but tonight we bounce back. So let me know 5 players who you think will win your fantasy league in 2024. Do you agree with these guys, or do you think, Nick, you're an idiot? This is all wrong. Let me know, because that's okay, right? You guys are going to disagree with me. You're going to agree with me. I'm not going to be right about everything. Spoiler alert. It is impossible to be right about everything. If I was right about every single thing, I would be a quadzillionaire. I would win every single bet that I place. I don't, right? No one does, though. No one does. And if they tell you they do, They're lying straight to your face, or they have like the fucking sports almanac from Back to the Future. So I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Make sure if you are new to the channel, you hit that subscribe button down below. Whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you lightly caress that like button down below. It helps me out a ton. Love you guys all. I will see you guys on Monday with another banger of a video. As always, guys, have a great one. Love you guys from deep down the bottom of my heart. Love you guys. Goodbye.